So welcome back. In today's video, we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is your requirements engineering, or the software requirements engineering, to be very specific. So the video starts with this particular cartoon. Actually, it's a tree swing picture from 1970s. It came from, on businessballs.com. So what it says is that this is what is the actual thing which the marketing team requested. Right, so I have a swing, right, and this swing looks like this. 2 ropes and then 3 platforms. And this is what the sales has ordered it, 3 ropes and 1 platform. And based on these set of inputs, this is what is engineered and designed. And based on this is something which has been manufactured, and later on this is something which is installed, right? This is how it has been installed, because this was manufactured, but since it was unable to swing, so they came up with this kind of alternative. And whereas this was what the customer wanted, so it's like nowhere near to what actually the client has asked for, right? Looking at these things, it is nowhere near to what the client has asked for. And this has happened just because of faulty or ambiguous requirements. Just because of the failure of communicating it properly and correctly, we came up with a disaster which was never asked for. And the whole fault lies just because of the requirements were ambiguous. The requirements were unclear as well. And the requirements were faulty as well. So this particular cartoon shows the importance of effective communication and the software requirements. And that's why this software in requirements engineering field came into existence with a lot more importance. The requirements engineering is definitely in case of manufacturing and other field, but in softwares also it was observed and it was needed, and hence people went for this software requirements engineering. So there is another cartoon, and where there is a discussion going on between the requirements engineer, or you can say the solution provider, and the client. So where the solution provider is asking that I'll need to know your requirements before I start to design the software. And first of all, what are you trying to accomplish? So the client says, I am trying to make you design my software. This is what the actual accomplishment the client is looking for. So the solution provider says, I mean what you are trying to accomplish with this software, the actual basic purpose of the software. So the client says, I won't know what I can accomplish until you tell me what the software can do. So the solution provider says, try to get this concept through your thick skull. The software can do whatever I design it to do. That means software will provide anything which I'll design, right? So the end client says, can you design it to tell you my requirements? That means, can you design it so that the software can tell you my requirements? So that's how this discussion takes place. So what we have is, we have several types of requirements, or software requirements to be very specific. In which we have like functional requirements. We had an informal discussion on your functional requirements as well. We have your non-functional requirements, which are nothing but your quality attributes. And the last one is your domain requirements. So your functional requirements are the requirements that the end user specifically demands, right? The end user specifically demands. And these demands are like the basic facilities that the system should offer. And all these functionalities need to be necessarily incorporated into the system as a part of your basic understanding. These are represented or stated in the form of input to be given to the system, the operation performed, and the output which we are getting out of it, the expected output. And these requirements are basically stated by the user, which one can see directly in the final product, unlike your non-functional requirements. Now, in case of your non-functional requirements, these are, the quality constraints. These are the quality constraints that the system must satisfy according to the project contract. These non-functional requirements are also called as your non-behavioral requirements. So all your portability, security, maintainability, reliability, scalability, reusability, flexibility, on all sorts of flexibilities are falling under your non-functional requirements. And then we have the domain requirements, which are the characteristics of a particular category or domain of projects. So the basic function that a system of a specific domain must necessarily exhibit come under this category. For example, if suppose in an academic institute we have the academic software that will maintain the record of school or the entire college, and the functionality of being able to access the list of faculty and the list of students or the grades of the students is nothing but a domain requirement. That okay, it should be there in case of an academic software. For example, in case of payroll management, the salary calculation is a kind of a domain requirement that okay, it should be there in the product. Right, so let's look into these software requirements now. So what we have is we have like functional and non-functional. We have the software requirements document. For the specification, we have the requirement specification, and then we have the requirement validation. That means I need to validate these requirements. Now, so these functional requirements, so the statements of services the system should provide, how the system should react to a particular input, and how the system should behave in a particular situation. That's what previously I was saying about input to output, right? So from input to output, these things are expected in case of functional requirements. And it may also state what the system should not do. In case of non-functional requirements, the constraints on the services or functions offered by the system, such as timing constraints, constraint on the development process, standards, etc., are to be considered. And these non-functional NFRs often apply to the system as a whole rather than individual features or services. Now, so these are the types of requirements. One is your user requirements, another one is your system requirements. Now, see, don't get confused. These are the types of requirements and these are the types of software requirements. So, in case of user requirements, the statements in natural language plus the diagrams of the services the system provides and its operational constraints are added. And these are basically written for the customers. In case of system requirements, a structured document setting out the detailed descriptions of the system's functions, services, and the operational constraints are added. So it defines what should be implemented. So may be part of a contract between your client and contractor. User and system requirements should specify what the to be developed system is expected to do, but not how to do. How to do is a part of the design phase. Right, that's the part of design phase. Now let's talk about your functional specification. So business use case approaches like identify the different users of the business operation. For example, in case of loan management system, I'll have the loan management department staff and the customers. Right, so two set of users, one is the staff and the other one is the customers. Identify the functions performed by each user. So in case of your loan management staff, define loan types, loan process for each type. And for the bank's customer, apply for loans, find the status of the loan application. That can be the functions for your customers. For the staff, it would be like defining the kind of loan, the entire process, and the various categories. So these things are falling under your functional specifications. Definition of the function or entity, right? The purpose of each and every entity. Description of inputs and where they come from, right? What kind of input I'm expecting for a particular set of operation, and from where this particular input is coming from, whether it is coming from a user or it is coming from a system. That means it can be like a system will be passing on some information to the payment gateway, right? So at that time this particular input will be from the system, not from the user. Whereas a particular system will be expecting some kind of like basic credit card details and in a form of input, that would be from the user, not from the system, right? Then I need to give the description of the outputs and where they are going, right? So from input, some processing is taking place, I'm getting some output. So I need to give the detail about the kind of output we have, plus where it has to go. That means this output has to go to some other system, or it has to be displayed on the screen for the end user. Details about the information needed for the computation and the other entities used. Right, all sorts of computation. Let's say if I have to calculate based on the user's account details, I have to calculate the tax. So I need to have some information about the tax slab as well. Right, then only I'll be able to judge the actual tax to be paid by the end customer. Description about the action to be taken. Right, when a particular event should be triggered, what kind of action should be taken. That means, for example, if suppose I have a facility that my account balance should not go below 5,000. In that case, if someone's account balance goes below this, so there will be an action which will be triggered. That would be maybe a kind of penalty, or it can be a kind of reminder through SMS or emails. Right. So then I also need to have the pre and the post conditions if appropriate. Right, that can be a penalty, or maybe SMS can be for, let's say, penalty can be for a general user, but for the premium customer there can be a reminder only. Side effects, if any, of the function, right, for particular thing, right, how it is going to impact me. So this was all about your functional specification. Now let's talk about the requirements document, because all our discussion is going on around this requirements document. So the process of writing down the user and the system requirements in a requirements document. User requirements have to be understandable, and it should be understandable by the end users and your customers who do not have a technical background, right? See, if suppose to a non-technical guy, if I'm talking about let's say open source, right, that does not make any sense for him. If I'm talking about Gradle for an Android application, it does not make any sense for him, right? If I'm talking about JDBC, ODBC, right, it does not make any sense for him. So my document should be in a way that it should be understandable to a non-techie guy as well. The system requirements are more detailed requirements and may include more technical information as well. Your requirements may be a part of contract for the system development, right? It can be a part of the contract. That means whatever has been specified in the contract, that is included here. So it is therefore important that these are as complete as possible, as extensive as possible. So these non-functional requirements are broadly classified into product, organizational, and the external requirements. Let me write it for you. So it is your product and your organizational and your external requirements. Right, so these are three broader categories of non-functional requirements. Then this product is further classified into your usability requirement, efficiency requirement, dependability requirement, and your security requirements. And this efficiency is further classified into your performance requirements and the space requirement. Your organizational requirement is classified into your environmental requirements, operational requirements, and your development requirements. Whereas your external requirements are further classified into your regulatory requirements, ethical requirements, and your legislative requirements, which further is classified into accounting requirement and your safety or security requirements. So I'm not going into details about this. Let's focus on the software requirement specification. Right, because we are talking about requirements engineering, right? Software requirements engineering, to be very specific. Right, I have software, I have requirements, I have specification. So let's talk about the characteristic of a good SRS. So a good SRS should be unambiguous, should be correct and complete, should be consistent, it should be verifiable, it should be ranked for importance, and should be ambiguous requirement statements are those that are prone to be interpreted differently by the business users and your software developers. For example, from the loan management software requirement specification, creating of a new loan type or modification or deletion to an existing loan type needs to be approved by loan manager head. Now, so in the ABC bank, there is a loan management head at each branch office, regional office, country level office, and at the global headquarters. So who is authorized to approve the above requirement? Right. So it is something which is ambiguous. So it's like those that do not state either the inputs received or the processing steps or the output produced by an activity correctly. The incomplete requirement statements are those that have not stated the processing steps or the output produced for some combination of inputs. For example, let's take the same example of loan management SRS. The loan management staff modifies an existing loan type details. The loan management head approves the changes. Now, the loan management staff deletes an existing loan type. The loan management head approves the deletion. Right. Everything should be crystal clear. What to do, what not to do, who will be doing, who will be approving. That kind of correctness and completeness is required. My document should be consistent. So the two requirement statements are said to be inconsistent if they contradict each other. For example, from the loan management SRS, a requirement in one section reads as the loan management staff deletes an existing loan type. The loan management head approves the deletion. A requirement in another section reads as an existing loan type can never be deleted. It can only be deactivated with effect from a date and time. Now, two things highly inconsistent. On one side, I am saying it can be deleted and the deletion can be approved by the loan management head. And one of the points says it cannot be deleted and it can only be deactivated. So that kind of ambiguity inconsistency we have. Even in some sense it's ambiguous as well. Now it should be verifiable. The requirements document should be verifiable. So a requirement statement is such that there is no technical mechanism to check whether it is offered by software. For example, from the loan management SRS, customer of a loan application should provide his or her residential address proof by uploading a recent electricity bill. The software should automatically verify whether the electricity bill is genuine or not, and if genuine, proceed to the next step, else inform the user that his or her residential address proof is not genuine. Right, my application clearly states what to verify and what to do and what not to do, and what kind of message to be communicated. Now the SRS document should be ranked for importance. Every requirement should be tagged with its priority number. The priority number is a 2-digit number, and a value of 99 indicates the highest and 0 indicates the lowest priority. So let's take the same example of our loan management SRS. Once the loan management staff submits the form corresponding to creating a new loan type, the software should validate all the fields. If there are any errors, the software should display the error message along with the new loan type details to the loan management staff. If there are no errors, the submitted form is sent to the loan management head of this branch office for approval. Priority 99. So if this requirement is not implemented, the other requirements cannot be tested. Right, because approval takes place and then only further I can take some actions and then further testing can be done. And that's why we have declared here this priority to be 99. That means of the highest priority. Now, next is your traceable. Right, requirements to be traceable. For each requirement, there is an evidence as to the source of that requirement. Sources of requirements can either be an interview with the business user or a reference document provided by the business user. For example, in the same loan management system, the loan management staff deletes an existing loan type. The loan management head approves the deletion. Source, the team lead of the software development team, is the one who has informed this, and this particular thing is well written or well documented. Right. So these things are like something which can be traceable. It's like, for example, someone from your end comes for makeup exam. Right. Now the Dean Academics asked for the permission from where you have got the permission from the makeup exam. So it can be traced. You can show the application where the instructor has recommended, HOD has recommended, right, by instructor, by HOD, and the Dean Academics has approved. So I can trace this particular thing, right? So everything should be well traceable, well noted, and also well written and documented as well. So these are some basic guidelines for writing the requirements. One is to use the IEEE standard for SRS template for all the requirements. Use language in a consistent way. Use shall for mandatory requirements, should for desirable requirements, right? So two things: shall for mandatory, should for desirable. Use text highlighting. Include an explanation or the rationale of why a requirement is necessary whenever it is required. So the systematic manual analysis of the requirements to be done. So first of all, for anything to be verified, right, even the softwares are tested manually, and then later on test automation is done. So the manual analysis is something which is crucial. Even if I am going for the automation, then there are chances that my system or the application which is testing the SRS might skip some of the other things which a human eye cannot skip. So requirements reviews, where the systematic manual analysis of the requirements is done. See, right now we are talking about validation of the requirements. Then we have prototyping. So use an executable model of the system to check requirements covered in this chapter 2. That means the previous discussion. So you don't need to go into this particular part. So using an executable model of the system to check requirements covered. Right. I have the executable model, which is like we are going ahead with the prototyping. Recall the prototype model where we had the prototype in order to verify the requirements, right, or to get some basic idea. Similarly, I will be executing this model of this particular system which the client has asked for in order to check the requirements which are covered. And then last one is your test case generation, right? So develop the tests for the requirements to check the testability as well. Right, so this was all about your validation part. Now, next is your requirements reviews. So the regular reviews should be held while the requirement definition is being formulated. Right, so in the formulation phase only, I need to go for regular reviews. Right, I get a different perspective from someone else. I get a third party perspective. Both client and contractor staff should be involved in reviews. So all the stakeholders are involved in this reviews. It's like, let's say if I have written an SRS document and my end user is also listening to what all I have covered, the end user might give some input on that if I have skipped something or I have understood something in a wrong way. That means I have misunderstood something. Now, reviews may be formal. So, advantages of SRS. Right, we have talked about all the left and right about this SRS document. So now let's talk about the advantages. One is a standard quality SRS reduces the overall development cost. Right, because see, everything is crystal clear now, it is well documented. So I know that I will be in a win-win situation in the later stages of this development. Now, it contains all features requested by a client. A quality SRS document makes the testing easier. See, the reason being, from the SRS document only I get to know the basic purpose of my application, and hence in the testing phase I know the basic purpose, so I'll be able to focus on this functional and non-functional attributes. So I know about inputs and outputs, the quality aspects. So for any kind of testing, whether it is black box or white box, it becomes very handy if I have a quality SRS. Now it defines the project scope. So the scope of the project is also well defined in this particular document, and hence it becomes very handy. So this was all about the advantages of SRS. Now let's talk about some of the drawbacks of this. Right, some of the disadvantages of SRS. Although the disadvantages should be very less. So the first thing is time consuming. Right, it takes good amount of time to come up with a final version of the software. Final version of your SRS. So initially it comes out to be a time consuming aspect. It becomes troublesome. That means coming up with a SRS becomes troublesome when my client is not technically sound. It also becomes troublesome when client fails to properly explain and elaborate the basic requirements which the client is expecting from the software product. Right, let's say my client is not technically sound and client fails to explain that what actually the client is expecting from the software product. In this case, it becomes very difficult to extract the information from the end user, and hence it becomes tough to finish this particular SRS document. On top of it, there is always a fear that I might have misunderstood what the client is trying to say. So I might come up with some faulty requirements. For example, let's say for a university application, my client has said that I need to have a grading system, and this is the only thing which I've explained. Now the developer comes up with a solution where the grading scale is from 0 to 4, whereas my expectation was from 0 to 10. So you can call it as an incomplete requirement, plus as an end user I failed to explain what actually I'm expecting out of this particular product. And that's why it becomes very tough and very risky when my client is not technically sound, and on top of it, if suppose the client is also stringent, is not flexible at all, in that case reaching to the final document version becomes tough, and on top of it